The government have announced that any foreign national criminal that commits a crime will be deported immediately. Now, before, this only applied to foreign nationals that committed a crime with a prison sentence over 12 months. But now all foreign nationals that serve a prison sentence will be deported. Now, whilst I support this idea in principle, it is an improvement. I think the real thing that we should be talking about is, why do we have so many foreign nationals here in the first place, and why are they committing so many crimes, and how we can prevent them committing crimes before it actually happens. Because if an immigrant were to rape a British girl, which does happen, grooming gangs and so on, just deporting the foreign criminal or even executing them doesn't actually undo the trauma from the crime that they've committed, right? There's no use deporting a foreign rapist or executing a foreign rapist, because that woman is still going to be traumatized for the rest of her life. It's just pointless. At least it prevents future rapes from happening, but it doesn't undo the original rape. So what we need to be doing is deporting people before they commit rape and so on. Now the question is, how do we determine who to deport? But if you look at the crime statistics, you can see that people from certain nationalities are far more likely to commit crimes than immigrants from other nationalities. I mean, immigrants from the Middle East and Africa are extremely overrepresented in the British crime statistics, and the British government doesn't even release everything. There are countries like Germany and Denmark and so on that actually do break down the crime rates by ethnicity, and it shows that people whose origin is from the third world commit crimes at a far higher rate. Now, obviously, not all foreigners are criminals, let's be clear about that, but we can't be taking a risk by having these foreigners that have a tendency to commit crimes at a much higher rate than the native population in this country. I think the truth is that when it comes to third world immigrants, we don't really need them here. They don't contribute to the economy. They take out more in benefits than they pay in taxes. They don't enrich our culture. That's just rubbish, right? I mean, if you like having Indian takeaways, then we have the recipe, okay? We don't need foreigners to make the food for us. We can do it ourselves. And it's just a really stupid argument to say that we should give our entire country away just to have some foreign food. And they're extremely overrepresented in the crime statistics. So what we should do would be to have mass deportations of third world immigrants, people that are here illegally and legally. Because the truth is that British people are going to be a minority in their own country by 2050. It's not enough to just deport people that are here illegally. If you want to solve this problem, then you have to remove people that are here legally, and you're going to have to remove people that are born here. Because the truth is, for example, take the Pakistani grooming gangs. A lot of those people were born here, okay? Just being born here doesn't make someone British. And to really solve the problem at its core, we have to remove millions of people, regardless of their immigration status. Because even if they're here legally, the government could make them illegal and deport them to prevent future rapes happening. Because, for example, foreign nationals, not including foreigners that have British citizenship, but just foreign nationals, are 25% of the sex crimes, despite being 10% of the population. So there clearly is a problem. Now, why are foreigners so overrepresented in the British crime statistics? Well, there's multiple reasons for it, but they all sort of link back together. Obviously, there's a cultural element to it. I mean, in a lot of Muslim countries, women are expected to cover their hair or even cover their face. And it means that a lot of men that come from those countries to here just aren't used to seeing women show their full head in public and so on. Because, for example, a lot of the people living here that want to import immigrants, a lot of the like gangs, I mean, you know, the gangs that Keir Starmer talks about, they create videos showing British women not wearing that much clothes, and essentially it's an advert to foreigners to come over here, right? And so yeah, there's definitely a cultural element to it. There's also religion. I mean, religion is a part of culture, but you can interpret certain Islamic scriptures as endorsing grooming gangs. I mean, I think, like, I'm actually gonna say something controversial in the right wing, which is that, you know, these grooming gangs, they're not representative of Islam. Like, I do think that Islam on the whole is an all-right religion. It's just not compatible with British way of life, simply because it puts the ummah before the nationality, whereas, you know, I'm a nationalist, and the nationality comes before people of a similar religion. But, you know, on the whole, Islam's not a terrible religion. You know, if you put the quotes that Tommy Robinson puts into context, it sort of makes sense. You know, it's not, Muslims aren't compelled by religious duty to rape people and so on. But there is a problem with the Islamic community. And I think a lot of it is just genetic. I mean, if you look at the IQ, people from the third world have an IQ of around 80 to 85, whereas people of European origin have an IQ of around 100. And people with low IQs are not able to have the same self-discipline as people of a higher IQ have. And there's also a delayed versus instant gratification. I mean, for example, if you rape, you know, there is a good chance you'll go to prison. And a lot of people of a higher IQ that are considering rape will choose not to do it because they know what the long-term effects of doing it will be. Whereas people from Africa, Somalians and stuff, they can't fully understand that actions have consequences. So I think that's part of it as well. But then a lot of left-wing people talk about socio-economic factors, and I really do feel like banging my head into a wall whenever someone brings up socio-economic factors as a justification for why immigrants commit more crimes and how. But it's like, is it relevant? You know, people say that immigrants contribute to the economy, whilst also bringing up how they're poorer and how that makes them commit more crimes. But if they're poorer, then they're obviously not contributing to the economy. So it's a huge contradiction, really. And even if it is because of racism against foreigners, which I don't think it is, that explains the socio-economic factors. I mean, you know, this is our country. British people should put British people first anyway. So I don't see the huge issue with it. And one final point I want to make, which is, as much as I'm against Keir Starmer, he has actually been an improvement compared to the Conservatives. I mean, obviously his policies are still going to result in the British people becoming a minority, but he's deporting foreign criminals. He's made it so you have to speak English to come into the country, and he's increased the skill level for which you have to be to come into the country. And he's also using a lot of our talking points. I mean, if you look at some of his tweets recently, you know, a year ago they could have been Rupert Lowe tweets. You know, Starmer's tweeting about deporting illegal immigrants. You know, that Rupert Lowe was like that a year ago. And so, even though his rhetoric doesn't match up to his policies, you know, there isn't mass deportations of illegal immigrants. It just shows how far we've gone. And, you know, we've been able to force Starmer into talking about deportations. And, you know, we've got a situation where both Labour, the Conservatives and Reform are all competing with each other on who can be the toughest on immigration and deportation. So that's something. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, follow me on X, which is at Liam__GB, and yeah, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.